Hi Kosu, I'm Cykosu. If you clicked on this video, you're probably fed up with losing all the time to the free injure S-tier baby killer for baby losers, the Ghoul. Do you appreciate my sarcasm? Full disclosure, I'm a Prestige 100 Ghoul main, and on the Nightlight and DBD Tricky leaderboards, I'm in the top 10 players for the character. I've dedicated a lot of time to him, and that's why I'd like to make a guide for survivors to go against him, since there seems to be a lot of misinformation and frustrations with the character. I'd like to advocate for people to take a more educated approach to facing Kaneki. This video will run down Kaneki's power and specifics with cooldowns, distances, and little details that may help survivors understand how to handle the character better. I also go down mindsets to have and methods to deal with how different Kaneki players utilize his power, and how I personally see different types of Ghoul players. This video has sections you can skip through if you wish to skip to certain discussions or explanations. However, watching the video in full will give you full context and information to his ability, as well as clear up any misinformation you've been shared. Disclaimer: this guide is being written as a version 9.3.0. If any nerfs, buffs, side grades, reworks, bugs, or bug fixes occur after this version, please make note. Of course, no advice will be better than playing the killer against good players, or watching someone play the killer against good players. Watching what the survivors do that lead to them getting down helps a lot in learning what not to do. I recommend more than anything to try the character, play matches until you're going against better players, since your first couple of matches on a killer will be lower MMR, and avoid mistakes you see other survivors make. The reason I know so well to play against the Ghoul is because I've also spent so much time playing as the Ghoul. For those of you coming into the game recently or just not in the know, the Ghoul is a mobility-based killer in Dead by Daylight. Ken Kaneki, the protagonist of the anime and manga series Tokyo Ghoul, one of my personal favorite series of all time, he is the first manga-originating character to be added to the game as a non-cosmetic character, and is from an alternate universe version of the original story that behavior made to allow him to fit better as a killer, while still feeling like an accurate depiction of his character. But you're not here to hear about his backstory. You're here to learn about the character and learn how I, someone who has sunk over 1.5 thousand matches and nearly 300 hours into him, would tell you how to deal with him, and how I personally play against him in my own survivor matches. First, I'd like to talk about some misinformation I see get spread around the character. These are things I'd like to clear up about the Ghoul, since it seems a lot of players have the wrong information, and it's harming their gameplay going against him. Pre-dropping is counterplay. This is only correct for god palettes and if you have distance. Otherwise, this is essentially wasting a palette, since you're giving him the opportunity to cut you off or catch up to you between palettes. Also allowing him to break the palette sooner than you could have allowed him, which leads to faster dead zones, which is where Kaneki is his strongest. Kaneki has no cooldowns. Most actions put Kaneki on a cooldown actually. This includes biting, cancelling power, vaulting, breaking pallets, or initiating a Kagune swipe. Kaneki can hit instantly after leaping. Kaneki has 2 seconds before being able to hit after cancelling his leap, and 1.25 seconds after ending a vaulting action. This one is added because it is painfully common for people I play against to dead hard instantly upon hearing me cancel, when I'm not even physically capable of hitting them in time. Kaneki has auto-aim. This one's only partially true. I mentioned later in the video exactly how Kaneki's reticle works. It's not purely auto-aim like most think, it's more like a sticky aim. Kaneki requires 0 skill. In some cases, yes, there are parts of his kit that are very skillless and require minimal effort. But against more educated and better play, the skillless parts tend to struggle more, and yes, Kaneki's injure can feel free at times, but he can't bite you again to get it down. If you play pallets right and don't drop a pallet in the face of a killer who's able to vault pallets, he does actually have to work for his downs. On top of this, him injuring you with his power does waste more time on his part, while giving you the full speed boost, and also holding him in place, giving you plenty of distance as long as you remember where your pallets are. Kaneki only has overpowered add-ons. His only good add-ons for general playstyles are Mask and Centipede. Otherwise, for cutoff playstyles, Coffee and Satchel are the bread and butter, but are definitely not overpowered. If you were to ask Kaneki mains about this, most would say they want Centipede and Yamori's Mask reworked entirely. Healing against Kaneki is bad. This is one of the bigger offenders of misinformation being spread about the character without really any basis either. People started saying this because he has similarities to Legion in how he injures. However, unlike Legion, Kaneki actually gets punishments and downtime for landing an injure in his power. Healing consistently makes it so he has to use his power more to injure rather than cut off, which puts more downtime on him. Kaneki has the highest kill rate in the game. According to Dead by Daylight Japan's post revealing various game statistics up until August, Kaneki isn't even in the top 5. In fact, he was only put in 8th place, with the actual highest kill rate belonging to Vecna. In the global statistics, Kaneki was beat by Vecna, Freddy, Sadako, Dredge, Pig, Twins, and Blight. However, his pick rate was within the top 5 both in Japan and worldwide regions. Funny enough, survivors in Japan have a notably higher escape rate than survivors in the rest of the world. On an unrelated note, have you ever noticed how when you watch people play in Japan servers, the survivors DC a lot less frequently? How interesting. Anyway, moving away from the misinformation section, as the rest of it will be answered by the other sections of this video. So to run down his abilities, Kaneki's power works like a grappling hook. He holds up his Kagune, and a reticle shows up for both him and any nearby survivors. Pressing the leap button will send Kaneki in the direction of the reticle after initiating the leap. Kaneki will slide for a second, and is given the chance to adjust his position for 5 seconds. Kaneki will have the option to leap again or to cancel. The chance to do another leap automatically cancels after the adjustment period ends. Canceling puts Kaneki in a downtime where he cannot swing for 2 seconds, and then his power goes on a cooldown for 4 seconds per leap used. Using the second leap will not make him slide, and cannot be cancelled. Instead, it will deliver him to his reticle and stop him, giving him more control for a cutoff. Leaping once and then leaping onto a survivor will trigger a bite attack. Bite attacks are hit scan and have a sticky aim effect, which do make it very easy to hit, and sometimes can make it seem like you're getting hit through a wall. However, if positioned properly, Kaneki may bump off of something on the way to you and cancel the bite. If Kaneki grabs onto a survivor on his first leap, it will instead trigger a Kagune swipe. This won't deal a health state, and instead will stun Kaneki while also hindering the survivor by 50% for half a second. Altogether, the distances for leaps and bites go like this. Kaneki's maximum leap distance as of 9.3.0 is 14 meters, 15 with the handkerchief add-on. Kaneki's minimum leap distance as of 9.3.0 is 5 meters. Kaneki's maximum bite distance is the same as his leap distance, and Kaneki's minimum bite distance is 2 meters. If Kaneki leaps into a downed pallet or a window, he will vault as long as the vault location is not occupied by someone else vaulting. Upon vaulting, his leap count will be completely emptied, and he is placed on a full cooldown. Breaking the pallet will deplete one of his leap tokens, putting him on a 4-second cooldown. During his vault, if a survivor stays too close to the pallet, it marks the survivor to lose a health state upon Kaneki's vault completing. So if he vaults, don't try to hug the pallet, and keep a little bit of distance away from it. Otherwise, you could lose a health state even if you make some distance. As long as the survivor and the pallet hitboxes collided during his vault, you will be marked to lose a health state. Upon successfully landing a bite attack, Kaneki will become enraged, giving him the following benefits: a third leap, increased vault speed, and altered cooldown time. While enraged, the second leap will now have a slide, with the previous second leap effects being applied to the third leap. Triggering a bite on an already marked survivor will now trigger a Kagune swipe instead of a bite attack. If Kaneki grapples onto a survivor over a vault while enraged, his vault speed will be increased by 0.667 times, which can be very punishing if not played against correctly. During his enraged state, his cooldowns decrease technically. His cooldown per leap gets put down to 2.5 seconds, according to the wiki. However, since he now has a third leap, this just puts his overall cooldown to 7.5, which is just a 0.5 difference to his unenraged state. And since Kaneki cannot initiate a leap until he has all of his leaps available, his overall cooldowns are 8 while unenraged and 7.5 while enraged. His downtime after leaping before being able to hit a survivor is the same, being 2 seconds. After vaulting, his downtime lasts 1.25 seconds, not including the vault animation itself. After canceling the charge up for his power, he cannot swing for 1 second. After a Kagane swipe, his cooldown is 2.5 seconds long. Keep in mind, he is also hindered heavily during this cooldown. And after a grab attack, his cooldown is the same as a normal blade wipe animation, 3 seconds long. After marking a survivor and gaining enraged, he will stay enraged for as long as that survivor has the deep wounded status effect. After the survivor is downed or manages to mend themselves of their deep wound, a countdown begins. If Kaneki hits a perfectly timed grab attack, the countdown lasts for 50 seconds. Otherwise, the countdown lasts for 40 seconds. If he fails to mark another survivor before it ends, he will lose his enraged status and go back to having only 2 leaps. So I mentioned earlier that he has a sticky aim. So this isn't exactly an auto aim, but it isn't not one either, if that makes any sense. So how does it work? There's a sphere on the reticle that if it gets close enough to a survivor, it will lock on. And as the ghoul tries to pull away, it will sort of stick. While this makes landing a hit with a Kagane leap easier, it also hinders the ghoul player if they would like to go for a more skillful play at a tile. Because there's plenty of times when a survivor who's injured but unmarked will get bit, and instead of getting a cutoff or at least closer to getting the down, Kaneki will end up biting the survivor, giving them a free sprint burst and putting them on a full cooldown. Okay, sure. Yeah, that's where I was aiming. Or it could lead to Kaneki landing a Kagane swipe instead of a bite or a leap, which would slow him down even more. Not to mention that the stickiness also tends to last longer due to ping, similarly to how Dead Hard feels like it lasts longer despite only supposing to last for half a second. The sticky aim lingers for 0.2 seconds on the environment and marked survivors, and lingers for 0.18 seconds for survivors who are markable. I'm going to briefly go down some of Kaneki's more advanced abilities that aren't directly listed in his power in-game. These are usually things that were community discovered or created. Slingshot. A slingshot is when Kaneki initiates a consecutive leap while still midair from his first leap. This carries his velocity over into the next leap, sending him forward at a much faster speed. Counterplay. Doubling back when you know a Kaneki player will go for this can punish him. Since he's going faster, he's going further, and has less reaction time to cancel. What also helps is breaking line of sight, if you're at a tile where you can. Tricking him into slingshotting the wrong way is just as punishing. Leap Nil. A leap nil is a special frame-perfect interaction that Kaneki can perform on window vaults, instead of vaulting using power. He has a specific point in his leap where he is able to interact with a window, allowing him to perform a typical vault, but with the added benefit of his remaining leaps being immediately usable. Counterplay. Honestly, just don't let him cut you off. I feel like this tech is most useful at Killer Shack, and you have 2 opportunities there to escape this in that tile. But really, it's just don't let him get in front of you. Prompt Steal. Prompt stealing has varying difficulty depending on the tile and the survivor's understanding of the character. A prompt steal is when Kaneki latches onto a survivor just before they get a vault or drop pallet action prompt. Using the Kagane swipe, this effectively steals the prompt from the survivor, disallowing their vault or pallet drop. Counterplay. For pallets, stand in the middle of the pallet if Kaneki is mid-leap, or if you see him pull up his Kagane. This makes it so he cannot block you from the drop pallet prompt, and puts him in a lose-lose situation. Either he cancels power and lets you drop the pallet, or he stares at you, waiting for the sweet solace of you giving him the prompt steal, or the vault. But it will never come. For windows, queuing the vault sooner or reacting faster to the prompt steal and running in a different direction will help. Remember, this tech requires the Kaneki to use the Kagane swipe, which means if he messes it up, he's stuck for nearly 3 seconds and put on cooldown. Properly countering this can give you a great benefit in chase. Cutoffs. This is what every Kaneki main loves. It's like crack, I would know. I'm a cutoff addict myself. Cutoffs will usually use a culmination of all of his abilities, primarily slingshots, as a way to get in front of you, cutting off wherever your probably predetermined path is trying to lead you. Counterplay. Paying attention to his movements and his reticle when you can is very important. Doubling back or leaving a tile when he goes for a cutoff is some of the best things you can do. Now I'd like to highlight the parts of his kit that survivors have to help in facing him. First off, you can see his reticle, so you have a direct tell of where he is headed. When he initiates a leap, he will have to reach the reticle's location before a cancel can go through. The only time this may not be the most useful is if the Kaneki player understands slingshots. Since Kaneki will be attempting to act fast while doing this, reticles will have a very limited time to be observed. It's very common for survivors to try running through or past Kaneki when he is blocking a doorway. This does not work, because his hitbox is in the way. Once he cancels, you have 2 seconds to make distance. Use it to get away instead of running into him continuously. Kaneki cannot perform a prompt steal or vault a pallet you just dropped if instead of dropping it you stand in the middle, if he has his Kagune out or if he still is in his leaping phase. It is also possible, however risky, but still possible, to spam vault a pallet the Kaneki plans on leaping over. If he grabs onto you while you're mid-vault, he will bump, forcing him into a Kagune swipe, putting him on cooldown, holding him for 2.5 seconds and ultimately giving you more time and distance to get away. I've mentioned before, Kaneki vaulting or breaking pallets puts him on a cooldown. This makes it so your better choices are to challenge as many pallet tiles as you can instead of running immediately upon dropping a pallet. If a Kaneki meets you at a tile, you should not ever drop and run unless you know he's on cooldown and there's a pallet that you can chain to. Otherwise, if you drop a pallet immediately and he has his leaps available, he can just vault it and down you, punishing your misplay. Or he can choose to cut you off before you can even reach the next tile. Mindlessly running from pallet to pallet will not help you in the long run since Kaneki snowballs heavily the less pallets there are. They're your shields, do not let them shatter. When you get bit, remember that he's held in place and you are let go very early, while he's still being held in place and also recovering from his cooldown. Make use of it and find a tile, preferably a longer one that you can mind game at and play around the pallet, or a shorter one that he thinks he'll be able to vault freely, but if you just keep grading it, you'll be able to, waste his time for long enough. Delaying dropping the pallet for as long as you safely can is important. It requires some time to understand, but knowing when you should greed and shouldn't, and understanding the person playing Kaneki and how they react to pallets is also very important. Adapting to scenarios and different players is a very big step to playing well against Kaneki players and killer players as a whole. Lastly, Kaneki has animation and sound cues for when he's about to leap and when he cancels or puts his Kagune away. Pay attention to these as these will let you know if he's going to try and leap or vault towards you. Ghoul has a few different ways he can be played. There's an unbearably common Vault Brain, Yamori's Mask, and Centipede ghouls, where they typically are the players who don't want to put thought into the character, so they look up whatever is strongest and run what they see. These ones get punished hard by just playing tiles well and paying attention to their cooldowns. Don't give them downs and chain tiles while making sure you're not wasting them either. Have a calm mind and do gens at every chance you're able to. Faster they're done, faster you win. Usually these players don't know how to drop chase either. Then there's the cutoff playstyle. This is my personal favorite. These players are more focused on slingshots and using them to cut off survivors in loops. Mind gaming and misleading them is very strong. A lot of the time you can make Kaneki overshoot if they try to grapple back with their last leap. This usually will give you enough distance to continue your tile or run to another one, since he will be on cooldown. These are the players you really want to pay attention to the reticle with, and pay attention to how many leaps they're using. Unless they are in chase, they likely won't use more than 2 leaps, since the third will make the cooldown longer while giving them less distance. Think like how nurse players won't use their second blink if they're scouting for survivors. These players typically run Fresh Coffee and Kaneki Satchel, as these increase the speed at which Kaneki leaps. There are also some ghouls who will try keeping everyone injured using the bite attack. This isn't super optimal in my opinion, as I think Kaneki gets more usage out of going for downs than keeping everybody injured. I would just do gens against these ones and heal when you find it possible, since healing against Kaneki makes him have to bite you again, which furthers his downtime and cooldowns throughout the match, versus not healing, which allows him to just catch up or cut you off in an actual chase. These players could honestly do any of the previous types actions or just play for the M1 without using power. Pay attention to them and play based on how they are reacting to you. There are a very rare couple of Kanekis who actively try to avoid using the bite attack and will use add-ons like Broken Chains to make it so unenraged leaps come back faster. I would treat these players like an easier version of the cutoff Kanekis, just that they have less leaps. But of course, should they accidentally get enraged by biting you, be a lot more careful. Alright, that's all the playstyles I can think of currently. As you could probably tell, the biggest advice is to just pay attention and to make smarter plays. Try to react a little bit faster and use the information the game gives you. Kaneki only becomes easy to win with if you make bad plays and give him the pressure of quick downs and consistent hooks. Make sure you're doing gens when you have downtime, stay healed, and don't waste tiles. look for where he's going and avoid him. His counterplay is very similar to killers like Blight, Wraith, Nurse, and Sword of Singularity. If you know how to handle those killers, apply that mindset to Kaneki. Generally, another counterplay that works well against Kaneki is hiding. Since Kaneki's gameplay is very quick, he's going to spend less time looking around generators or in lockers, so hiding can be a very strong play against him. I want to dedicate a section to your mentality while facing Kaneki, since a lot of players talk about the character in bad faith or misunderstand him. While facing Kaneki, remember that the Shift W playstyle is one he counters the most. The sooner you understand that and adapt to it, the better you'll play. When Kaneki goes for a bite attack, remember it's a hit scan ability. That means if he triggers the action while his reticle is marked on you, it will trigger the action of injuring you, no matter what, even if you move behind a wall. As long as on his screen it showed the bite reticle when he pressed the button, it will attempt the bite. However, if you are able to position yourself roughly 3.5 meters behind an object or have something to make him bump into on his way to you, it can cancel his bite, only giving him the enraged state while letting you keep your health state. Simplifying his power down to just a free injure is undermining a lot of the things you can do with the killer, which then undermines a lot of thought you should put into doing things that mitigate his power. Caring so much about your first health state when he has to use his power around tiles to actually get the down is what's hindering you, since your first health state is just a sprint burst that makes you louder when you don't have it. And that applies to most killers, not just Kaneki. Being unpredictable, playing mind games, and using line of sight to disrupt Kaneki's predictions is important to making distance and disallowing him to catch up to you or cut you off. A mistake I see most survivors make against me is forming a preset path in their mind and not changing plans when they see me rushing towards them. Continuing to go for a path that I've already realized they're going for, and getting blocked while they continue to run into me. Another important factor is being stealth against Kaneki. Since he's such a fast-paced killer, players of him will spend less time looking around and are going to use their power to move around faster. Playing the stealth game and hiding in unconventional spots will keep you safer as well. Unless the Kaneki runs aura reading builds like I do sometimes. So while in chase, pay attention to his path and adjust accordingly. And while not in chase, keep your distance. Kaneki also heavily punishes cockiness like teabagging at pallets, hovering for saves, or survivors being grouped up, since he excels in injuring everybody, and if they panic, he can abuse that. Spend less time trying to BM or bait him, focus on making distance. It's these types of survivors who get downed because they couldn't figure out how to make distance after spending more time spamming the control button on their keyboard instead of looking for a pallet. Good Kanekis can use his mobility and quick recoveries to make use of grouped up survivors for pressure. His quickness can put many survivors into a deep wounded state in a short period, giving the survivor team a major slowdown on their objective. Staying separated, similarly to Legion, is better to avoid giving Kaneki free pressure. Only group up if you have the time to heal and know he won't check your location. And lastly, for mentality focuses, don't give up so easily. Dead by Daylight is and always has been a game where a match can turn around at any moment if the right plays are made. And Kaneki is really not that hard to counter, you just need to know how to use a tile efficiently, which doesn't even require any perks or items, and despite that, it's also fine to think he needs some changes. Now, while I don't suggest relying on perks to help you win your matches, I am a firm believer that as Survivor, you should rely on actual reaction and skill. I will talk about what perks will help you, at least for the sake of learning to go against Kaneki. Any healing perks. I shouldn't have to list specifics, it's really just any perk that increases or better benefits healing teammates. Examples include Do No Harm or Botany Knowledge. Made for this. This makes you have 3% haste while deep wounded. This makes pallet looping and cutoffs harder for Kaneki to win at. This perk especially hurts cutoffs. Overcome. This makes your injured speed boost last longer. This gives you more chances to make it to pallets in case you run into a dead zone on accident. And aura reading. I think knowing where Kaneki's location is can be very important, since through his animations you can tell if he's going to leap. Being able to tell this when you don't have line of sight can be life-saving. Before I go into my ending notes, I want to share my own thoughts on the character and what I would want changed to make him feel better to face on the Survivor end, because I admit there are things that should be changed or should just go. Keep in mind, I will also include changes that I think would make him feel better to play, but shouldn't impact Survivor gameplay too much. I also want to preface this with the fact that these are things a lot of Kaneki mains usually agree on. I hope this also ties a bridge between people who dislike Kaneki and people who love Kaneki, because there really is not that much difference between the two sides. We both want changes. The difference is one side doesn't know enough to know what they actually want changed, and instead boil their comments down to wanting the character to be the next Skull Merchant, or to be flat out removed, which doesn't have any valid criticism under it. So first things first, an add-on pass. Kaneki's add-ons have a very small range of being OP or underwhelmingly useless, bringing the strong add-ons to being more manageable while making other add-ons have better effects, which allow variety. In that same sense, making Coffee and Satchel base kit to make Enraged feel more useful and also further benefit the skilled playstyle Kaneki has, instead of highlighting the Vault Brain less skillful playstyles. Making vaults harder to perform or outright removing the vaulting interaction altogether because it's cheap and makes skilled plays clunkier. Removing sticky aim outright, it doesn't need to exist, no other range killer has this besides Singularity who doesn't injure using that ability. Sticky aim actively just makes Kaneki's skill floor lower than it needs to be. If not removing sticky aim, then make it so Kaneki's leap and bite distance are separated, and instead Kaneki has to be within 6 or 8 meters to initiate a bite, rather than his maximum leap's range. In the same line of thought, revert his nerf to his maximum leap range. Making his max range 14 meters down from 16 didn't do much to help the survivor play feel better, it just made the killer feel worse to play. Similarly, decrease his minimum leap range because 5 meters minimum makes his power feel extremely clunky as well. Something like 2 or 3 or somewhere in between would be nice. And lastly, fix his bugs, please. There are things right now that make both sides feel worse than it should to play against or as the character, which includes animation bugs that make it unclear if he's leaping or not, and there's bump logic that collides with things behind him or to the side of him that makes him lose leap tokens but make no distance. Alright, that's all. Thank you for listening to my mini rant about the character and what I would want changed. What a lot of survivors don't quite grasp yet is that Kaneki mains want the same thing as them. Major changes to his power. If you ask most Ghoul content creators or prominent mains in the community, most of us want his vault removed or his sticky aim removed, and would much rather they focus on the skill play of the character and his potential for cutoffs. If you want changes, think about what is frustrating and bring that up. Saying things like delete Kaneki or I want that twink obliterated doesn't help anyone figure out what the actual pain points are. Not for the community, not for the players, and certainly not for the devs. The game has suggestion forums for a reason. Social media complaints aren't always going to help, and I think a big problem the community has is the inability to properly vocalize problems, which creates misunderstandings, misinformation, and changes made to characters that don't make sense. No one should naturally want characters to be gutted for any normal reason, outside of just wanting to be mean and refusal to have empathy for other players, just because they play the opposite side, when in reality, we're all playing the same game, doing the same thing, just in our own different flavors. And yes, I did use this video's outro to briefly share my thoughts on the current attitude of the Western Dead by Daylight community and how both sides have problems with understanding the other as people. I hope this video helped you understand Ghoul better and gave ideas for how you can handle him better in your matches. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm Cykosu, and goodbye, Kosu. Also, on the off chance that anyone at Behavior is watching this video, please get the blue jacket and centipede designs added and unlink Awakened Ghoul, please. I will give you my soul, please, 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 please.